Hardship is not a choice. Victimhood is a choice.
Yes.
And the best a politician can do, certainly a president can do, is at least to create the conditions in a country where we don't create the incentives for people to choose victimhood.
Hey there guys, welcome to the channel. So in today's video, I want to talk about a conversation between Vivek Ramaswamy and Douglas Murray. Both incredibly sharp dudes, obviously, we all know that. And so they had a discussion on victimhood, resentment, and strategies to address them both. And it was pretty thought-provoking. I liked it a lot. I thought you guys would get a kick out of it. But considering, really what the world is like right now, to me, what makes this so interesting is the blend of Douglas Murray's like super philosophical, very, very smart insights with Vivek's very, very solution-oriented, very, very logical approach. And I think you guys are really enjoy this just as much as me. So check it out. Before we do, guys, thank you to everyone who's been subscribing and leaving such great comments. Really, really appreciate your support, guys. If you haven't already, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, please share the channel and help us out with the algorithm. Every time you do, a leftist loses their wings. So take a look.
Let me lead us on to what's perhaps one of the most awkward parts of this conversation, which is we talk most of the time in discussions about meritocracy about the people who can and the people who can succeed. Of course, in any society, but particularly in a democracy like America, you have a flip side of that problem. You said, I was very struck by it, hardship is not the same thing as victimhood. I couldn't agree more, but we do live in a society in which victimhood is the main goal. To be a victim and to be on the victim hierarchy, to have the delicious opportunity to be the most victimized person is clearly the aspiration. We've all seen it in our lives when people pick up the microphone in a Q&A and they say, speaking as, and I think, everything that's going to come afterwards is going to be garbage. And then they'll say something about their lived experience, as if there's any other kind of experience. In my unlived experience. But we do have this problem, particularly in America, that the seeking of victimhood in our own lifetimes, and you wrote about this obviously in both of your books, but in our own lifetimes we've moved, in America in particular, which is so striking, from a culture of heroism to a culture of victimhood. And if I can lay out very quickly, there's one particular problem in this, in a democracy, which is something which I quote Nietzsche a little bit in my most recent book, In the War on the West. And whenever a student says to me that they're a fan of Nietzsche, I always say, oh yeah, which bits? You've got to think it's worth using carefully. But I used rather carefully Nietzsche's work on the genealogy of morals in my last book. And there's one particular insight of his that really struck me and is pertinent to our situation and to our discussion today, which is this. Nietzsche talks about the type of person who, he says, a person of resentment, who, among other things, and see if anyone can recognize this type in the society we're now in, among other things, tears, he says, at wounds long since healed and then cries about their hurt. Now, Nietzsche says there's one particular problem, which is that the person of resentment needs somebody to stand over their lives and make a correction. But it's not even clear to Nietzsche who that person should be. It's not clear to me who it should be. Nietzsche ends up talking about the person maybe being a secular priest, is the term he uses, quite an interesting term. But he says that somebody must stand over the life of the person of resentment and say to them at some point, you are right. You have reason to be resentful. There is somebody who has ruined your life. There is somebody who has held you back. The person is you. Now, that is probably the least pleasant thing to hear, and probably one of the hardest things to ever say. How can a politician, should a politician, say to certain people, you know, you have screwed up your life. and it's been your responsibility and your fault. You could turn it around, but if you don't want to, you'll still be the only person to blame.
So I just want to talk real quick about what Murray just said there before we go on to Vivek. So because, you know, this is pretty amazing. So he talks about the danger of the victimhood narrative, especially when it's weaponized for political gains. And what he's saying is, in his eyes, selling the story of victimhood is a short-term solution, you know, because it entraps people in some self-fulfilling prophecy of perpetual freaking failure that is always someone else's fault. And they end up with perpetual resentment as well. He points out that the core flaw in the victimhood narrative is it robs people of their agency. You know, when someone is constantly told that they're a victim, it becomes their identity, you know, and when that's your identity, it becomes almost impossible to break free and take charge of your life. Instead of looking inward and asking, you know, what can I change about myself or my circumstances? We just blame everything on everybody else. And he says that as soon as you believe that your destiny is in your hands, you become empowered to change it. And I think he's absolutely 100% correct. You know, his evidence being stories of countless immigrants who came to the United States with nothing and made something of themselves, a lot of something. You know, not by considering themselves victims, but by believing in their own power to change their circumstances, and the fact that they had the opportunity here in the greatest country in the world to do it. It's perfect. And that is real evidence. You know, nothing was more important than, you know, just like nothing is more important now than a sense of personal responsibility and accountability in today's young people. If our society is going to thrive, it absolutely will not be through victim mentality.
I think here's how I would say it. It is still in your power to turn it around, but that is your choice to make. I think hardship is not a choice. Victimhood is a choice.
Yes.
And the best a politician can do, certainly a president can do, is at least to create the conditions in a country where we don't create the incentives for people to choose victimhood. And so would I, if I'm speaking as a national leader here, would I point to the person and say it is your fault? I would say it the other way. I think it is our fault for creating a culture, including the economic incentives that backstop it, for you to make the choice that you are making today, to be a victim rather than to be a victor. Okay? Now, we will do our part and fix that on the expectation that you will then do yours. And I think that is the kernel, thank you, for a national revival in this country. I think it makes the difference. That single trade will make the difference of whether we are Rome, or more likely, look at how long we've been alive as a country, more likely whether we are Carthage, or whether we're just a little young, going through our version of adolescence. Adolescence is a period where, even absent those government incentives, there's something about adolescence that makes you want to see yourself as a victim of your parents, of your conditions, of your high school peers. Right? There's something about this is woven into nature too. It's not just a governmental citizenry relationship. It's something within each of us. Well, we're going through that version of adolescence as a nation right now. And I think in the good version of this, where we have leaders that are willing to change that incentive structure and to boldly look their citizenry in the eye and speak that hard truth back to them, set the expectation of what we expect of citizens. The idea of being a citizen entailing a duty. Part of that duty is to look within, not to blame the other, but ask about what I can do myself. Well, if we're able to do that, then I think as a nation itself, we will too get through our version of adolescence and be stronger on the other side of it. As there were many rises and many falls of Rome, actually, that's one of the secrets of history. There was no one rise and fall of Rome. There were many rises and many falls. I think we may still be ahead of the next rise in the American experiment. I truly believe that. I think it depends on the leaders who we have who are willing to speak that hard truth.
I'm so glad that you said that about adolescence in America. It comes much better from your mouth than from mine. I was brought up to believe, as Jessica Mitford once said, we weren't taught much about American history in Britain. What we were taught was that basically the Americans had done something unspeakable in the 18th century, and we preferred not to talk about it.
So Vivek's response got me thinking here. So here we are, we're the United States. We're not even hitting the 250-year mark. And like every other empire before us, everyone probably felt like they were the main event, you know? But history shows that empires come and go. And it's scary when you think about it just like that, but especially when you see what our ruling class is doing to us now. But what's the trick to keeping an empire going? It's not just about power. It's about unity, it's about shared values, it's about purpose, common purpose. We don't really have that today in this country. You know, we have real challenges. We got a declining birth rate. We got insane political drama. We have societal norms that are shifting. I mean, shifting's not even the right word. And just a general sense of real confusion, you know, but the biggest red flag is this rise of victim mentality. If everyone's busy playing the victim card, who's going to step up? Who's going to lead? You know, when everyone's looking for handouts and safe spaces, who is going to be the go-getter? We need a go-getter. We need a problem solver. We need builders. We need real solutions more now than we ever have in our entire history. So this is a bit of a reality check. You know, we've got to ask ourselves, you know, what legacy we want, our generation, what do we want to leave, and how are we going to step up to the plate? And I thought you guys would find this interesting. You know, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your comments. And don't forget, guys, please like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the Common Sense Garage. We'll see you in the next one.